My name is Jennifer Biworsi, one of the co-directors of Music for Your Inbox, and welcome to another one of our artist chats. Today we'll be chatting with Roxanne Nesbitt, who is the main film artist behind this month's film. Her beautiful piece is called As You Give and Falter. Roxanne is an instrument designer, improviser, composer, and we're really excited to talk with her today. So I'm going to get her invited, and then we'll have our conversation. Hey there!
Hi.
So I was just telling everyone about the film you created with Ben Brown and Parmala Atariwala called As You Give and Falter, and we're so thrilled to get to present it. And I thought today maybe we could start our conversation. So you have a background in performance, improvisation, and then I believe also architecture. And now you've kind of arrived at this place where you perform and also design these beautiful instruments. And I was wondering if you could talk about the instruments you make and kind of how you got to this point in your creative practice.
Sure. Yeah. I studied classical music and architecture, um, and I kind of found them both to be limiting, I guess. Ultimately, I wanted to do something creative, so I kind of took the skills from both sets of training, and I now use that to design instruments and make installations from them. And then I also write music for the instruments, or they become kind of more interactive installations intended for other people to play.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
And just in case people haven't encountered your instruments before, I've seen them as like these ceramic aluminum bells. Can you talk about like what they're like and how you make them?
Sure. Yeah. So I work mostly with porcelain and bone china and aluminum so far. I'm hoping to get some training in the next couple years to work with other kinds of metals and do some metal casting. But for now, yeah, just I'm mostly like hand forming and slip casting pieces, and then when I work with aluminum, I'm like cutting and bending and like processing kind of like existing extrusions. I don't really do any welding um, or like casting shapes yet. Um, and I use a lot of kind of like experimental or like a combination of kind of like experimental process and really like kind of ancient instrument design techniques, and those kind of like meet to kind of maybe apply like ancient techniques for tuning to like different shapes and textures. Um, so I've ended up with quite a range of different instruments. I mostly make percussion instruments, but I made like a violin-like instrument with a ceramic body, and I've also made different kinds of like flutes and woodwind instruments that are kind of hybrid percussion instruments and woodwinds.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, um, I've seen of your instruments, a lot of the ones I've seen are like these kind of suspended bells or like objects used on other instruments. But I know that even though, these objects are kind of beautiful on their own, you've thought a lot about like the politics behind these objects and, from things like a priority that they're shareable or repeatable and not like precious exclusive objects, and
Mm-hmm.
the handmade aspects of them, and then also kind of confronting like the misogynistic, racist history of different like classical instruments to kind of
Mm-hmm.
create your own language. And I was wondering, could you like talk about some of these politics that you've kind of been working with alongside the actual creative, you know,
Mm-hmm.
construction practice? There's really a lot of thought behind them. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Basically, I find like new instrument design and experimental instrument design to be a really great way to kind of get beyond the kind of what I feel are the like negative kind of aspects of music, the like um, the preciousness and the boundaries and the like kind of ideas that this instrument is should be played this way, like the kind of like prescribed methods that kind of go into classical instruments and into the music making that surrounds them, and that can be like a really freeing way to explore sound without having to kind of answer to these old rules that were there are from a time before we had the conversations about equity um, and humanity that we have now, I guess. Yeah.
And with the objects, I know there's kind of a tension between like, um, I've read that you do like a lot of measuring and experimenting, but also
Mm-hmm.
like the element of like handmade and touch and shareable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what are kind of some of the things you're thinking about when you're kind of negotiating, the way you construct them with the way they'll move around and be shared and things like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of experimentation, and I really like the contrast between the kind of like the some of the perfect precious instruments that we've inherited and that we're working with, and the kind of handmade instrument that has like more kind of texture and exploration kind of built into it. You really have to learn how to play kind of each piece as it comes, because sometimes I'll have an idea about how something will work and how something will sound, and then um, I get a lesson in physics and sound from this object that it's not necessarily what I thought it would be. So you have to bring kind of like a beginner's humility to the instruments, which I think is also an important part of the practice.
Yeah, like a lot of it sounds like, and from what I've read, there's a lot of like seeking really um um like forms of freedom that aren't kind of lodged in like a history of standardized, highly, systematized kind of um boxed in practices that
Hmm.
is so common from. I know I'm familiar with. I'm a classical cellist, so I'm
Hmm.
very familiar with a lot of the
Yeah.
backgrounds you're talking about.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um. So I also wanted to talk about the film itself, like as you give in falter. So at first the film kind of was like a performance featuring yourself, Ben Brown, Parmala Achariwala, and really beautiful kind of improvisation on the bells, vocalization, viola, a beautiful performance. But you really generously and beautifully also developed the film into this kind of stunning, like embellished performance with drawings and animation and experimental footage. And I was just wondering if you could talk about the different elements you introduced and how you made them.
Sure. Um, uh, yeah, as you were saying, the film has this kind of foundation of a performance, and then there's overlays on top of it, different animations and drawings, and the all of most of that footage comes from this kind of era where I made a lot of animated music videos, kind of like 2016 to maybe 2020, where I was making a lot of animated videos for music and sometimes doing visuals for musicians, which isn't something that I do anymore. So they're it's a combination of outtakes from those processes, like things that I kind of had filmed or tried and never really landed anywhere, and then some kind of more recent like light studies that I did with some of my instruments and like a light underneath a drum. And then I was just trying to pair the performance with different elements that could kind of like enhance or kind of animate maybe the intention of the musicians or animate in some way the lyrics or the kind of electroacoustic background element, like having sound images that at times like reflect what you're hearing and at times contrast what you're hearing, just to add kind of another exploration to the video. And then I have used those kinds of videos in the past as like a graphic score, but in this case, the the performance came first, and the video elements were added later.
That makes me curious because I think a lot of people kind of enter the art world or enter their art practice through sound and music, stay in sound, and you have this kind of whole practice that also has really visual elements. How do you find those kind of parts of your work interacting, or do you?
I guess I've always been a visual artist in some capacity. Like I've always been good at drawing and like crafting things with my hands, and I worked harder at music and I worked harder to engage with music. It wasn't necessarily the easiest path for me. But I've found ways to kind of bring those practices together, and yeah, through things like instrument design and like graphic scores. And then I also am fine to explore them separately, but I find that a lot of the thinking that goes into making a visual or a sonic piece is the same. Like we're talking about the same elements of texture and form and foreground and background and uh, the the method that you approach these kinds of different disciplines can really be quite similar.
Yeah, I that really resonates with me. There's this kind of sense of, I think a lot of like the language between the mediums can feel really separate, or some of the kind of institutional practices between the two mediums. But whenever I encounter artists who are kind of crisscrossing between them, that sense of, gesture, form, like you said, they're all so intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, as a viewer and listener, like very much appreciate your kind of sensibility of how those gestures work together in really well crafted and beautifully intuitive ways. So thank you so much for your work. I also wanted to kind of share, Roxanne's film is paired with a piece of visual art created by Christine Shan Shan Hou, which is called Late Afternoon Over Sperry Glacier, which Christine actually made while they were listening to to other pieces by you. So it's very responsive. And I hope people check them out because it's a really special film, and we're really grateful for how much effort you put into it, how much time, and it turned out so beautiful. So thank you for talking with me about it and for making it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jennifer. Can I ask a question
Absolutely.
about the postcard?
Yeah.
Is it a blank postcard that we can then send to someone, or does it come with a message from Music for Your Inbox?
Actually comes with, they'll be backwards so you can't see it, but it comes with Christine wrote a poem that goes with because Christine is both a poet and visual artist. So on the back there's a poem, and we have this lovely person, Savan, who hand addresses the postcards in calligraphy, and then they get sent, and they kind of arrive with the poem on the back and your address here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
Great. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I wasn't totally sure. I wasn't sure if I was gonna get a postcard that I could then send, or if I was getting like a complete message.
Yeah. Well, you in particular will get a couple that you can send because they'll be blank for you. But for everyone else, they'll get a beautiful poem from Christine that they can enjoy. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. Is there anything else you wanted to share or add that I may have missed?
I just wanted to say hi to my friend Rowan, who just joined. Unfortunately, we're kind of wrapping up now.
I'll save the replay so you can watch it afterwards.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Roxanne. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.